Hey everyone, I'm Mark de Grasse, and you're listening to the AI Branding Podcast, where we talk everything branding, marketing, content in the context of using AI to both establish your brand and propagate all of your marketing forward. I have a very special guest today. I have Christian Banach, and we're going to be talking about the relationship building that you actually have to do, and that's becoming increasingly important as a lot of the deep fakes and a lot of the poorly generated content you see online is kind of eroding our relationships and forcing us to really build solid networks that we could get leads from and also do business with. So welcome, Christian.
Thank you for having me, Mark. Excited to have this conversation with you here today.
Yeah, I think, we've all been kind of adjusting our business models over the last year or more, if you're anywhere near marketing, because, AI has become such an influence. But like I always say, I'm like, the relationship value and that kind of, ability to connect with humans has actually been more important than ever. And that's probably not going to stop in the near future. So just to start, where do you kind of see things going now that people are starting to adopt AI a lot more?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI is super exciting. We've experimented with it quite a bit in our company. There's been some opportunities that we've used that have not worked out so well, and there's been some others that have really accelerated the output that we're doing and even enhanced, the quality. So I think it's a little bit of a wild west still. People are still figuring it all out, but what I've personally been able to use AI for a lot is really using it as a thought partner. It's not just about pumping out content, but actually asking it questions and, what do you think about this, or how would you approach that? And I've really been surprised by some of the results that we've gotten. So, I think it's continuing to evolve. I don't know where exactly it's all going to go, but I think from a sales standpoint, it is making things more efficient, but it's also increasing the noise and the volume of sales emails and social media posts and all of this that's out there. So I do think that it's moving into a direction also where that will be part of it, but that human to human connection and that authenticity, also is going to be even heightened more than where it's at today. Because I think we can kind of tell what has been generated by AI and what has been generated by humans, and I think we still yearn for that human to human connection.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I think more than ever because since everybody can now see it, we use AI all the time. So most of the time we can identify it. But even for my stuff that I write with my articles where I'm like, I don't remember if I actually wrote those phrases or not. Because it is getting, if you do it right, you're able to brand the content where it's hard to tell the difference. But I think you nailed it with the, just the volume of content we're all receiving. I mean, I think I have like 300,000 unopened emails in one account. And a lot of the times I'm just looking for the people I know in the last 100 emails I've received. So I know you guys do a lot of lead gen. How are you still like making, let's say, the email part effective?
Yeah, well, it has definitely gotten much more challenging. We've been around for about 3.5 years, and what we've seen is that every year the conversion rate has basically been in half. So we have to do double the amount of outbound reach to get the same number of leads, for our clients. And what we've had to then do is try to identify how do we kind of cut through? Because at some point, there's not going to be enough leads where you can keep, doubling it, year over year. And, a couple areas that we've seen success, one in particular is that brand awareness, that, if there is an awareness of your target audience of who you are already, you tend to cut through much better. And you sort of maybe alluded to this in your 300,000 emails that you have in the box. You're only kind of scanning it for names that you might know already. So, I think just relying on sending out cold emails for lead generation is probably not going to be good enough moving forward. There's just too much noise in the space. So you really have to have an awareness campaign also. You have to be able to create demand before you're able to capture that demand, and we're seeing more and more of that, and the clients that we're working with that are doing that are seeing exponentially better results than others that are not.
Mm. Now, what does that mean in terms of brand awareness? Because I know a lot of times in marketing, we just default to that term if we don't have a direct result in mind. But I do like the premise because it basically is saying, hey, people need to at least be aware that you exist before they're ever going to touch an email or maybe even interact with you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, when we're talking from a B2B standpoint, brand awareness, can mean a lot of different things. For us, it's really about, first and foremost, does your zeroing in on your target audience first and foremost is you have to have an audience that you're targeting in the first place. And so what are the firmographics of the company? What are the sizes of those companies? Where are they located? What type of revenue? You really have to be able to clearly define those types of characteristics. And then within those companies, who do you want to be known amongst? If you're an agency, maybe it's targeting marketers. If you're in HR, it's targeting the HR department. So you got to get really clear on who your ideal company profile is and who your buyers are. But from there, you want to get to the point where, they are aware of your name and what you stand for, and the types of services that you offer. And that can be challenging, but if you have narrowed down your target audience, you can then start to market to those folks, in a much more strategic, way, because everybody's got limited budgets. So some of the different things that we're seeing companies do successfully, whether it be targeted LinkedIn ads that you can really zero in on specific personas, appearing on podcasts like this that are listened to by, your target audience, or what we're seeing a lot of success with, is also with email newsletters. So having, when I say email newsletter, I'm not talking about kind of your typical traditional company newsletter where it's about, the awards you won and, the new executive that you just hired. Like, your prospects don't care about that. What they care about is, how is your newsletter going to let me do my job better?
Mm.
And that's the kind of the filter that we look at it. But having a newsletter that provides value and thought leadership content to your target audience has been a really great way that we've seen clients help to build awareness, for themselves. So, not only do they know your name, but they start to know how you think and how you solve problems and your point of view, on those problems. So those are a couple different ways that we're seeing, agencies and consultancies and others that we work with, really, again, kind of elevate themselves and be able to build awareness.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's really that kind of providing value in advance, and we always kind of describe it as, all of your content that you put out online is the validation that you know what the heck you're talking about. Which a lot of times in the past, well, I think the content versus like the SEO type marketing was always two kind of separate things, but now it's being mushed together into one because the SEO might not be as effective because so many people are using AI rather than search engines. Now, in terms of actually getting that list together, though, how do you usually suggest people start building, an email list to start the newsletter in the first place?
Yeah, I think one of the first things to do is you want to get clear again, like I said, on your ICP and your buyer persona. And one of the best ways to do that first and foremost is to look at, do an audit of who have you won business from, who have
Mm.
you lost, business. So when I say lost, like, who have you maybe pitched business for, but you haven't won that business from them. And that you can start to see some commonalities behind that. And then within those wins, who were your best customers and who maybe not your best customers. So you really got to get clear on who that ICP, is. And then when you're thinking about, developing your list, there's a few different, ways. There's sort of like your organic growth, right? That's what most people think about when they grow a list, and those are great, right? So these are people that maybe visit your website and they subscribe, that maybe they see you on social media posts, they subscribe, or you're appear on a podcast and they follow you. So there's that organic piece. So again, you got to be out there though. Otherwise, how are people going to come across you, in the first place? So there's the organic piece, but then there's this other piece that we've been working on with clients that is maybe a little bit contrarian, but just like you might build a sales lead list and send out cold emails, we do that for clients for their newsletter. So we've gotten really clear on who, their target audience is, and then we will build a list of those prospects and we will put them, on your newsletter. So no, it is not necessarily an opt-in. They did not opt in. However, There's nothing illegal about that. Provided you're still following the typical can spam, requirements. There's nothing illegal about it. There's some email service providers that don't necessarily like lists built that way, but there are others that are perfectly fine with that. But what we've found is that if you offer value and it's not all about you and the awards and the executive hires, you will still see really high engagement, from that type of newsletter. And we see it time and time again. People like say, I'm not really sure how I got on your newsletter, but this is great. Let's talk. I want to learn more about your business. But it's got to be really targeted, for them. And again, it's got to be through the lens of, does this newsletter help me do my job better? And if it does, you're going to see really high engagement. But it becomes now the newsletter a really great channel to distribute your content directly into the inboxes of your target audience. And then you want to, make sure that you have some list hygiene. So you're removing people that aren't engaging and replacing them maybe with people that are. So there's definitely the organic side. And then there's this, more direct, sales route that you can do to develop your list.
Oh, I love that. Well, and it's all, all around, giving people something useful in the first place, which I think is the key to all content marketing. Now, with that, let's say that, okay, I built a list of prospects, I'm sending a regular newsletter, it all contains value. How do you get people from that, like just consuming the value part to, scheduling a meeting or taking that next step?
Yeah, that's a great question. We see kind of two different avenues, right? There are oftentimes you're going to get a response right to the newsletter. Love the value, love the content, want to learn more about what you guys do. And you'll see some, meetings and leads come directly from responses in a newsletter. We love those. Then is another route to go where you can start digging into your email analytics and start to see who is opening, who is engaging, with that content. And you can identify those that seem to be engaging, more than average. And you can, then send more targeted one-to-one emails or, pick up the phone and give them a call and, and recognize, hey, I know you're on our newsletter, I think you're engaging this type of content. Would love to maybe have a conversation, with you about that and learn about your business. So there's this sort of, other avenue that you can go with those that are showing engagement in a newsletter. And that's really where that awareness really comes in. So you might think of that as a cold email or a cold call to the prospect, but it really isn't. It's a warm type call because they already know who you are and they've been interacting with your content. So, we've oftentimes, gotten, responses, to that type of outreach. We're like, yeah, I've been on your newsletter. This is great timing. Would love to, have a conversation, with you about it. So there's sort of the direct way where they'll respond, or, you kind of, accelerating that with some more one-to-one outreach to them.
Oh, I love that. Well, there's nothing better than somebody you haven't met before come up and say like, "Oh, I love how you wrote that article that said this thing," or "I love how you said this in a video." And then, the video, all this content that you've created, has actually done like 90% of the work, and you just kind of show up and you're like, "Oh, I'm a celebrity."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we do see that a lot. And that's another thing where we really like about like the newsletter when it's more thought leadership based is it gives you the opportunity to become an authority on whatever topic it happens to be. And over time, your point of view will start to shape, people that are reading it and their points of view on how to solve, this particular problem. So it's a great channel, to be able to, to do that and have your thinking. And to your point, when they are ready to have that conversation, the newsletter has done 90% of the work for you.
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy, your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
Now, for those next level people, let's say, okay, they open every single newsletter, you've chatted with them, maybe they haven't pulled the trigger on whatever you're trying to sell yet. Do you elevate that relationship somehow? Like they become part of a different list where it's like, oh, hey, this is my insider list, or how do you manage that next step?
Yeah, we'll do a few different areas there. We also recommend, once you've kind of identified those high engagers, connect with them on LinkedIn, then, if you're in their city, or if they're already in your city, go out to coffee, get a drink with them. Like there's definitely this, I think with COVID, everybody's getting on planes before to do business, right? Then
Mhm.
COVID hit, everybody was, just really focused on the video chat. I think a lot of people have just stayed in the video world and haven't moved back into the actual real world. And we're seeing clients that are kind of have moved back into the real world and are still going to events and are setting up, in-person events. They're really standing out because there's not as many people doing that. And as we talked about when we first started here, there is still that level of human connection that people crave. So I think, once you've kind of identified them, I don't know if there's like a quote unquote kind of secret list, but it's really just nurturing that relationship, maybe on a little bit of a different level from everything more virtually, like connecting on LinkedIn, trying to meet coffee, sending more one-to-one type emails now that you know a little bit about them. If you see something that is out there that, might help their business, send them a one-to-one note. So there's a lot of it goes back to that relationship, making, philosophy that we have. And yeah, and I think if you're able to kind of nurture those relationships in a more one-to-one way, you're going to see a lot of success because a lot of people have gotten a little bit lazy, these days and are just relying on the digital side of things.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people, and this is completely changing now, have just relied on that first time customer. Like, hey, you know what? I'll just work with first time customers. Who cares what happens afterwards? And then I'll just keep on getting new and new, more and more new. But like we're talking about, and we've definitely seen with paid media too, where it's like, no, that conversion isn't going to be enough anymore. Like you have to have the longevity of keeping a client and multiple transactions, and maybe even that first transaction might not be profitable at all. And so now it's all about that long-term community building you're talking about. Now, with that said, it does sound pretty labor intensive. What would you say is the time, like the sales time frame? Has it increased substantially, or is it basically just a different beast when you're talking about this kind of nurturing?
I do think that the sales cycle has elongated. We do work a lot with more enterprise, helping our clients break into enterprise. So I can speak to that side. We've seen it definitely increase from your kind of first meeting to when you actually win a project has elongated. Ourselves, we sell mostly to small and mid-sized businesses. We've seen our sales cycle, also elongate. So I think it's just made what we're talking about here that much more important because you can't rely if you're just hoping to get on a call and sell them on that first call and you don't have a nurture strategy that goes along with it, you're leaving probably 80% of your revenue, on the table because most of these deals are taking, months, maybe even years to develop. So it has to be part of your mix. And I think, and I don't know, is that going to change if the economy turns around? I don't know. It's interesting to kind of guess what might happen, down the road. But I think either way you look at it, there's research out there that at any given time, maybe only 3 or 5% of your market is in market, to buy your services. So whether it is a long sales cycle or just the fact that they're just not in market right now, having something to nurture them and build those relationships over time before they even become a customer, is going to be really valuable.
No, I definitely agree, and I really don't think it will change because I think if anything, COVID taught us, and really just gain online taught us over the last 10 to 15 years is like I'm tired of buying cheap crap, and having to replace it all the time. I'm tired of trying out services and having them not work out, and then not only did I waste money, but I wasted time on top of that. So I think that the whole, relationship side of things is just going to, be reinforced no matter what happens to the economy. And it goes from both sides too, not just like, okay, the buyer of a service, expects a good relationship. But like all the relationships I have, I expect that I'm going to have them for a while because it's a waste of time if I don't have that expectation. So I think you're completely on the right track with how things are going to continue to progress. Now, with all that said, we've kind of established, okay, you need the community, you need those long-term relationships. How have you used AI to, help with these things? The content generation, the follow-up, all those kind of aspects.
Yeah, so we do, like I said, use AI in a number of different ways. I think There's some camp that thinks that, you're just going to kind of load up a list and these AI SDRs are going to, send out all the emails. And, again, maybe it gets to the point where that could happen. I hope it doesn't, go that way, because I think it does take that relationship, portion of it out. But we really are using AI from a research type standpoint. So, how do we use AI to build a better list rather than just download something out of Zoom Info or one of these different data platforms where the accuracy is not great? If we know we want a list of consulting companies, how do we use AI to, help visit the websites of these different companies and figure out not just are they a consulting company, but what type of consulting company are they? Who do they service? And help us segment our lists, better. So when we do send them messaging, the message is going to be much more targeted. And yes, you can have a human go and visit all these different websites, but it's very labor intensive. And we've found AI can go on these websites and do a lot of that kind of identification work for us, really, really well.
Hmm.
So that's one way, is just kind of how does it help build better lists for us? From a content standpoint, it's been a great kind of thought partner, for us, as I mentioned earlier, helping to identify, now that you've kind of segmented a list, like what are some of the pain points that these different audience segments are experiencing. If we're looking at trying to personalize messaging, how do we use AI to help visit maybe the websites of these companies or the profiles of these individuals, and what kind of relevant insights can we extract from that we can now send a more personalized message to them. So it's kind of a combination. We've been using it of human and AI. It's not something where you just press a button and then we have everything spit back to us. But it's taking what took tens and hundreds maybe of hours to do, and drastically reduce the amount of time that it takes to research and write some of this content. And I think when you still have that human element to it, it still is very personalized. It is very targeted. It doesn't come across as sounding like AI. So that's a couple different ways that we've been utilizing AI to this point.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I found the same thing because I write lots of articles, and anything that I just said, like, here's a subject and go ahead and write this article. That's the same thing as hiring a writer, and saying like, oh, I need this article and I don't care what it says, but just make some content for me because somebody told me I need to post more often. But the way you guys are using it, where you do the research, it's still your ideas, it's still your opinions, it's still everything that makes you you and your brand your brand. But it doesn't take forever because if it took a long time, you just wouldn't do it because you'd be overthinking it, or you just don't have the time for it. So I think that's a great way to use it. Well, not you losing the humanity that actually makes those pieces special in the first place, or that will make you look like an idiot when you don't know something that your own article said, and then people talk to you about it. So I think that's a great way to do it. Now, I'm guessing you're integrating this into your processes and allowing maybe lower level employees to do more work.
We are, yeah. We are pretty much almost every step has some kind of element of AI, coming into it. Another thing that we've been more recently doing is, A/B testing. And it's hard sometimes. You've done all the hard work of writing kind of the first email message for, per se. But now you're supposed to go and you want to test the new subject line, or, you want a different structure, or this, you want to test a short email versus a long email, or this, kind of call to action versus that call to action. So we've actually started to, build in some different frameworks and templates into like a chat GPT, and we'll write the base message ourselves, and then we'll say, hey, we want these different variations, and it'll come back to us within seconds with these different variations. And then we could decide, okay, for this particular message, let's test this subject versus that subject, or this call to action versus that call to action. And it's really just accelerated, that, which has then led to better insights, because now we're A/B testing. Well, we might have now discovered that, hey, maybe this longer email performed better than a shorter email, and we can use that insights across, other future emails, versus before, we just didn't have the time to do all the A/B testing that we're doing nowadays. So, I think at the end, we're getting it done faster and we're also getting, to better insights from it.
Ah, love that. Well, and it does a lot, like the analysis you talked about or the research, I've used that quite a bit when I'm just trying to make rough projections of like, okay, well, if an article can get this many leads or get this many hits and then it generates this many emails, how many would I have to get in order to, reach my revenue target for the month? And if you're bad at math, I found that it's actually not well, you could be good at math, but it's still a pain in the butt to create formulas. So I've definitely seen that be, a huge game changer. Now with I still think we're in the early stages of AI. I do think it's going to be much more capable once they get these new enormous data centers with their own power, capabilities. So that's not a limitation, which we see right now. Where do you see it going in, say, a year?
Yeah, it's really hard, for me to say. I think I'm hopeful. Let's put it this way. I don't know if this is going to happen, but where I'm more hopeful is that some of the hallucinations will not happen because that is scary, especially for us working with clients. Because if we send an email and it is way off base. It sounds super legitimate, but it is, it more or less makes up, information, or it's talking about one company when it's really writing an email for another. So I'm hoping that, there will be some more transparency. And I think we're starting to see some of this, like with Perplexity, and some of the citing of the resources where you can kind of go through it now and see that, oh, it pulled maybe from a wrong data source. So maybe I need to double check that. So I'm hopeful that maybe those hallucinations stop or there's more transparency about where they go. And I think we're trying to kind of starting to trend, in that direction. Beyond that, I mean, I see, more integration with tools, more kind of automation, maybe some of the steps even that I've been talking about will need less, human intervention. That also scares me a little bit because, again, of what I just said with the hallucinations. So yeah, so I mean, it's exciting. I think every day something, kind of new pops up. We were actually just looking at something where they take video. You can record yourself on a video, load a prospect list up, and it will change your voice and your lips
Mm.
to basically you're addressing each one of these prospects. So on one end, I think it's super cool, but at the other end, like again, where does the authenticity, come from now? If and is there a difference between that's basically what you do in a written context when you send an email, like it's automatically pulling in first names and company names in some dynamic field. So is there a difference if it's written in an email versus if it's a video that is doing that? I don't know. I don't know if I have the answers to that, but there are some kind of maybe ethical or moral, type questions that start popping up, with AI. But either way, I'm a big proponent of it. I mean, I think we're going to see, just in general, I think knowledge workers are going to, the productivity that they're going to be able to do is just going to continue to grow, exponentially, which is exciting.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree, and that is well, if nothing else, because I know that the Hey Gen is one of those ones where you could make an avatar of yourself and have it say whatever you want. It will make human, like genuinely human created content and anything else 100 times more valuable because it'll be like, oh, well, you could have done this way easier, but you took that extra step to, send me a video of yourself talking about our specific topic. Now, if it does get so good that you can't even tell the difference, then I think we'll have to start relying on like disclosure where you're like, this isn't really me, and you actually see that when you post like YouTube videos, it'll say like, is this modified content, or they have like a term for it when they're saying AI content. But it should be interesting to see. I do, but with all that said, I do think the relationships are going to matter, the genuine one-to-one connections, the humanness that you have with your prospects and your customers, going to be extremely valuable. Just like it always has been. We just didn't
Yeah.
rely on it that much.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think even as we look to evolve our business, while we have been more about, like I said, the email newsletters and the more one-to-one kind of cold emails, we're looking at events. I think there's something again to be said about this one-to-one, human connection. So I don't foresee a future where, this sort of AI and content is going away, nor do I see a future where the events are going away. I think they're both going to become a part, and you know, and I think for sales, you know, people in the sales role and the marketing role, you know, you really got to look at both, because that how do you continue to create that more human connection, you know, in this increasingly digital and AI type of world?
I totally agree. And I think you guys are on the right track, integrating AI, but not so much so that it just, blows out your entire business model, which I've seen some people do. And maybe that'll work. My problem is always like, I don't know what's coming next. So unless I have my own stuff really dialed in and really figured out, then, nothing I could generate with AI is actually going to matter. So it's good to see that your space is following that trend too. Well, where can people learn more about you and your services that you offer?
Yeah, I think the best place to go would be our website, which is christianbanach.com. You know, if you're like what you heard here, you know, we have an email newsletter and you can subscribe there and follow the content that we produce. And I think there's a lot of value in it, especially if you're in a marketing or consulting type of role.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Christian. Really appreciate your time. We'll definitely talk about some more content in the future. I'm always looking. I love the specialties and where you could say like, "Hey, here's exactly how we use this," and really just the application of AI in a practical, useful, but also not overbearing way that swamps people with crummy content, which is always bad.
This is true. This is true. Well, thank you so much for having me, Mark.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the AI Branding Podcast, where we talk everything branding, marketing, content, and AI. If you want more content like this, please subscribe.